program Megaworldwide, and Johnny Million joining me from Johnny
That's
Million Cat
me.
Central. And it's been a rough week, I gotta say. It's
Yeah.
a lot of heart-wrenching tragedy, a lot of avoidable tragedy, and a lot of Donald Trump
Yeah.
making excuses. And I would like to say, if I may, and I think that I can, that
I think you can.
if you become president of the United States of these Americas, which at some point I intend to do, what things that occur might not be your fault, but they damn sure are your responsibility.
Yeah.
And that seems to be a thing that Donald Trump is entirely incapable of fathoming.
Oh,
I don't know
he's
why.
always been one to own up whenever there's a mistake or
You
anything
think?
wrong. He's
Because I don't.
usually like he's very big with the mea culpa.
Absolutely, yeah. Like Trump steaks, my bad. Right? Trump University, I'm sorry you guys didn't learn a darn thing. And Eric speaks for itself. You're absolutely right. The 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 issue with this is that the question, I guess the question remains, and it remains to be seen, if Republicans receive it the way they used to. There was a period where they were afraid of him and all the stuff that he was going to do, and so therefore they bit their tongue because they were afraid his supporters would come after him. Now he's today launching, and we will talk about these, his attack on Canada and Mexico, or as I call it, the USMCA was the worst trade deal ever written tariffs. And you've seen, at least I see it
I
in
still
the
can't do that dance, by the way.
Which one?
The USMCA. Every time I get to the S, I get really self-conscious.
Yeah, you throw your back out. It's dangerous.
I do.
It's really just better to do that business, kind of like a rock'em sock'em robot who's in a bathhouse. But anyways, sorry, roll that back. Anyways, so
you went bathhouse. We heard you.
I did. Yeah. I went straight there. So the issue and what remains to be seen is, because currently Democrats are out of power in the House and the Senate and in the administration, thanks to a bunch of people who held their nose and stayed home, largely.
Yeah.
How are you vote shaming? You're damn right I am.
Yeah.
Get used to it, kids. If there is a
People that are saying that the Dems let them down need to hear this.
Yeah. If there's a responsibility in a circumstance where you can enact change and you choose not to because of petty issues or throwing up your hands or laziness or slacktivist hypnosis or any myriad of issues, and you look back on it and it's as stark as this is, because we're not talking about this, this toss up in the 99 2000 where Al Gore is wooden and we've got a surplus, so things are kind of okay. We got some stuff to work on, but they weren't perfect, and he's a little stiff. I don't know. And Bush seems like the guy you can have a beer with, and he's talking this compassionate conservative storyline, which, by the way, the Romney pitch, even to some degree, John McCain, rest his soul, with his whole bomb Iran story and sing along, with rare character exceptions, which were meant to be the stopgap between the worst impulses of these policies and how they are carried out. Sorry. And now we are on Instagram Live. We will be up in just a couple minutes. I'm going to take a break right now. But this, even those, there were precursors to this, because everything with Trump is a reboot, and he hasn't ever had an original thought in his life. And when he does have them, they're insane. They're the kind of original thoughts a toddler has before someone explains to them how physics works in general, before they figure out that just that when it's raining on your car doesn't mean the whole world is raining. that you can have a drought nearby and still be rained on in your neighborhood because the clouds are over you, but they're not over everybody at the same time, right? That theory, like the kids, it's hard to grasp when you're a kid. I remember the first time, that you had that thought where you're like, wait a minute, it's raining here like crazy, but it's not raining there. Think about that crisscross. Probably maybe you were 6, maybe you were 8.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, right, where you're like grasping the concept that it might not be snowing at grandma's house, even though it is here, or vice versa. Or she says it's snowing here, and you're like, huh? And you're like, wait a minute, there's a lot. Okay, that thought, Donald Trump has never crossed that line. Never. He's stuck behind that toddler line. That's why he comes up with ideas, and they're like, wow, nobody ever thought of that, because they're trying to placate a lunatic. We'll be back right after this. It's the House Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide. And out. I'm going to assume we're out right now, and so we're going to have to come up with a system where they can, like, signal you, Johnny, maybe? And if he gives us, like...
I've got my, phone open.
Yeah, if he texts us like 10 seconds or something, and we'll just kind of count down from there. We'll just shut up at 10 seconds and come back after that moment or something. Does that work? Hi, chat room. We're having an audio issue with Chicago, and hopefully it doesn't extend to Phil, because there's no particular reason why it would work, or why it wouldn't work, rather.
You would think.
Yeah. Okay, inbound connections. Inbound connect from viewers. True. Remote here. True. Yeah, I can't see the second which one it is. 2 can watch. 1 director. Don't know what that is. Close this. I'm gonna look at the room setting. Yeah, that's it. Oh, okay, never mind. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, there's no. I mean, like I said, on my end, it's just a glitchy situation. Because, like, again, there's that little meter on the side that goes up and down. It's just not moving. It moves when you're talking, Johnny, but it doesn't move when Chicago supposedly is. So check your phone. Let's see if we're coming back, and we'll work it out.
I don't see anything yet.
Okay. You know what I should do is just pop them have them pop into the Discord. That's what we need. I don't know why. Why did I even think of that? Why? How come? Because I'm a big dumb.
That's what I was going to say.
Ouch.
You guys know our house a big dumb.
Ouch. Why are you hurting me, John Emilian? It's because I have a slight pirate fuss.
You got the revenge era.
Yeah, everybody's like Gene Simmons' revenge album. Yeah.
We're back. We are back.
Hey, we're back. See, that's how it works. I like it. And if you don't know what the revenge era Gene Simmons facial hair looks like, you're about to find out. Because Orlando Sparks, I'm getting also in the chat room because of this. And that's very flattering. Thank you very much. That's very sweet. He is far prettier than I. And I have no problem with that because, man, sometimes that kind of attention can be a mess. I would rather be...
He started...
just sexy enough.
Yeah, you don't know what I deal with just when I step out.
I know.
Outside.
Yeah, you've told me about it. Johnny Million will sometimes call me in the middle of the night and just tell me about the torments of walking around as a handsome man.
I'm not just a piece of meat, Hal.
Well, you kind of are. All right, so
you kind of are. Look at it.
All right, so the big question is obviously I would call these the Walmart tariffs largely because the goods that come in through China from China through Mexico that are going to be taxed at 25% and the Chinese goods at 10%, which is on top of what already exists, I guess, and excludes anything that isn't on the in the Ivanka line. I honest to God, I think most of us are. I think the biggest confusion is why Canada, right? I think that's there's a lot of stupidness to what Trump is doing, but it seems to me the only reason I can think of why he would want to impose tariffs on Canada is because he has suddenly realized that the USMCA sucked, that it was a terrible trade deal. Don't try to do it. You'll throw your back out. Do not do USMCA, which is exactly, by the way, why he started doing YMCA at his rallies. Yes, that dumb. But the tariffs themselves, Mexico, it's obviously moronic. It's a lot of the goods that are made in Mexico that cause the trade deficit are things that are made in Mexico by American companies because increasingly the cost of labor in China has gone up, especially as we have. You know what? It's interesting because there used to be a period where Chinese labor was cheapest in the world. And that was one of the reasons why these factories bloomed there for a while. And they were subsidized by the government and all that other stuff. But then as the theory is that there was a burgeoning middle class and a rising quality of life standard. And so people wanted to make more. It was harder to attract workers or something like that at these factories in China. And therefore, the cost of labor was going up. But indeed, the middle class of China, which was the sort of executive or managerial class, didn't affect this at all. They, instead of having, getting more money from one business, they would just open several factories. So they didn't take a rise in pay as the managerial class in China so much as they just opened 5 other places. So they made plastic signs and they made plastic cars and they made other stuff, but they would all be different businesses. And so their wealth came from the increase in business in the country, but not because everybody was getting a raise. And that, because that's how it happens in the United States. You would go, if you have a factory that makes textiles, most of the time what happens is if there's expansion at that factory, you build another plant on site, but it's still that business. It's still, you're not competing with yourself. You're not opening up a secondary LLC or a S Corp or a C Corp where, and watch it grow, unless you're like an overarching company that just buys up these things. But in China, that was one of the things, is that as the middle class rose, it wasn't because the wages went up, it was because the increase of the amount of work went up, and the volume there's no volume pressure. They could just build another factory. So the workers themselves, there was a curious aspect of the price of Chinese labor went up precipitously. It was going up a little bit because of the reasons I stated, but it went up precipitously when the US and the EU stopped buying forced labor devices and cotton and textiles and minerals. That once you put the Biden administration put this the Xinjiang Fair Trade Act, I forget what the actual acronym of what it was. Once that came into play, the cost of Chinese labor, which was already going up, skyrocketed because the price of the paid laborers didn't change. Nobody working in those factories got a raise. The people that were working basically for free were removed from the equation. Yep. And so the cost had to be singular to the people you were paying to do the job. You couldn't outsource it to slavery. And so that's why the price went up over Mexico in a short order. Everybody was like, there's lots of reasons, like demographics. There's a lot of issues with their focus on trade and all that. But the primary reason that it went up was because the U.S. and the EU said, yeah, we're not going to buy slave cotton anymore. We have a bad history with that stuff, and we would rather not. And in doing that, by removing the free workers, all you're paying for now is the paid workers, and you need more of them, and therefore that work is spread out over several factories to the people that are being paid. Whereas stuff that goes to the Middle East, the rest of Asia, certainly Russia and the rest of these things, they're getting a lot of stuff on the cheap because they don't care. They don't care about the slave labor. As a matter of fact, they consider it a feature, not a bug.
Right.
So Mexico, because they have a growing population and they have a large sort of millennial and Gen Z age group coming up in the country, that as it has become stabilized and industry has moved there, they have a workforce. They have all the stuff that they, by the way, would have done for at textile sweatshops in the United States. They're doing in Mexico, being paid a similar amount possibly to what they would have made in the sweatshops in America, but it goes further there. Right? So the idea is work in a factory with the normal protections of your own home country, living around your own folks and your family, speaking your native language to the entire town, or and make nothing, or move to the United States and work in a sweatshop where you'd make a pittance compared to what you should be making, but a reasonable wage compared to what you would get back home. And what NAFTA ultimately did was take the sweatshops in New York, the textile sweatshops in New York and in Los Angeles and in some cases like San Francisco, and move them to Mexico over time. That's what ultimately happened. Whether that was the primary goal, that's what happened. That the people who are making what's equivalent to like $6 an hour in a sweatshop, and then which was a lot compared to the $2 they could make in Mexico, they had to come up here, live under the radar, be illegal, all that kind of stuff. And then, they could be fired, they could be mistreated, they could be forced to work ridiculous hours, all to make that $6. So the idea was NAFTA and ultimately USMCA was take those sweatshop conditions, which shouldn't exist. And if they just existed in Mexico, closer to home, it's less exploitative because that's a living wage, and they shouldn't have to come here and live under the radar to do that job. What's the difference between a factory that provides T-shirts to Georgia in California or a factory that provides T-shirts to the Walmart in Georgia in Juarez or something like that? It's transportation-wise, it shouldn't mean anything, and that was the essence of what NAFTA and USMCA was set to do. And it's kind of what it did. Like a good portion of living quality in the United States goes up, things get cheaper, you have the available goods that are, and then people there don't have to sneak into the country and work under the radar to do those jobs in the first place. They can just get paid at home, which makes total sense. It saves you on a myriad of other issues. The secondary costs that come with every human being that exists in any country. Healthcare, any kind of like union pensions, those kind of things. That's the home country's responsibility now if you just do it there. And I don't know why that conversation doesn't happen more. Because if you'll notice, that's one of the biggest things that you'll hear about is that, remember the sweatshop labor of what's it, Kathy Lee Gifford and all that kind of stuff? And that she was, she was using, okay.
And that didn't go well.
Right, no, it did not. But one of the reasons why she got caught was because she traveled to them, because they got moved back to other countries. This just-in-time stuff sent it home. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. It's the House Spark Radio program, Mega Worldwide. I don't know. I can't hear the music, so let me see if I can find another way to get Chicago back into the thing.
Gotta do it, gotta do it.
Possibility. Do I dare run Zoom at the same time? Because it's got to be is audio. Right?
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay, we'll give it a shot. Because it might be, if that is a better way, there's a way we could probably work this out. Let's see, available. Go back to here. I don't want, no, go away, silly thing. Go back to here. Oh, there we go. New meeting. Excellent. Join with computer audio. Excellent. And then I'm going to Check, check, check. There we go. And then,
Check.
yeah, good. And then what I want to do is more share. Let's see, participants, invite, copy invite link. Chicago, I'm putting an invite link for a Zoom in the chat on video, and let's see if you are able to grab that, and hopefully, yeah, I just sent it to you. Maybe that will work. I don't know what the rules used to be, but if I can, oh look, it's happening. It's fun watching it occur. Close that window, and then maybe, just maybe, we might be able to get the audio in and out through there. Dun 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 dun. Oh, look at that! Admit. There you
What was
go.
that?
Check one. Hello, Chicago. Oh, this is hello. Okay. There you go. Check, check. Are you there? I see them. Let's
No.
see.
It's a
It's horrible.
It's a
What?
whore?
horrible echo.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me change what mic is coming to you. So, let's see. 1 second. Ooh, there you go.
Yeah.
It should go guest. Yeah. Okay. So that should be aux 1. Video audio should. And the mic going to you should be. Which one? E2. E2. Working on it.
Working on it.
Yep. You discussed even yourself. Sorry.
I'm so gross.
It's true. B3. Which one? Sorry, 1 second. I will figure it out. Let's go to voice. I'll go to voice meter B1, and then I'm gonna set that to B1. And then Johnny, can you speak for me? Check, check.
Check 1, 2. Check.
Okay.
Check.
No
It's
echo on Johnny.
No
Echo
echo
on
on Johnny.
myself too.
Okay, hold on.
Check.
Okay, how about now?
Check.
Still there.
Still there. Check, check. Okay, still there. Hold on. Check, check. Go
Johnny,
ahead.
do you hear the echo or are we just going crazy?
I think I hear it through your headphones or through your speakers.
And now we lost Johnny.
Oh, okay, sorry. That's funny. Okay, how about that? Okay, you should get.
Check 1, 2.
Check 1,
Now
2.
I hear Johnny, but you're still the same Hal, and I hear myself looping back.
Sorry. How about this? Is that better?
You're still
1, 2.
echoing, and I'm still hearing
echoing
me.
now? How about check?
Check
Check.
1, 2.
Check.
Check.
Okay, you're good. I just hear myself still, but
Check
we'll roll
2.
with it.
Okay.
Give me a sec. We're gonna fade into your stuff.
Welcome back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Oh, the fun we have. So in this process, oh, I know why. You have both of the things open, Chicago. You have the video and the other thing open, so you're going to hear me both through those directions. I think that's why you were. Oh, he went away. Hold on. Now he can't. Now he won't be able to hear me at all because of that
my
very
God.
thing. And bang! No, it's okay. I got it. We're good. Welcome back. All good. I think we should be fine. Devin, are you there? Can I hear you just to make sure that I'm not insane?
Just say hi.
Okay. And you, hi, Devin. And you
Hi,
can hear
Hal,
Johnny.
Johnny.
Yeah. Look at that.
Hi.
This, I think I might have found a remedy. All right, so here we go. Now, going forward, man, I love me some technical issues, and I have to say, terrible segue, that one of the things I despise. There's this funny thing about like Glenn Beck and that crowd, and the Newsmax folks, and Carl Higby
Oh, wow.
Sellers.
You're about to
Brandon.
tell me a reason why not to like them? This is weird.
Well, no, not
All right.
them. That they seem to think that that my, and I take it personally, that my attitude towards Donald Trump and that I find him genuinely grotesque, is a matter of just like a personal affliction. Like, you know, they'll say like orange man bad, that kind of syndrome, right? And I would love at those moments to be able to remind them that the dude was friends with Jeffrey Epstein for 2.5 decades, long after he said they didn't hang out anymore, partied with him all the time. And my secondary, my follow-up to that piece of information would be, okay, knowing that, how long would it have taken you to realize that Jeffrey Epstein was a pedophile and not hang out with him anymore? A year? 2 years? 5 years? 7 years? 12 years, 15 years. How long? How much time? 20 years, 22 years, 25 years. Would it have taken you a quarter century to figure out this guy's a pedophile, not hanging out with him anymore, not doing business with him? Like, again, there are a lot of people who figured it out after, I think, 5 flights. You know what I mean? It was one of those things where they he lent his plane for charity reasons. He flew Nelson Mandela, or no, Trump loaned the Nelson Mandela plane, but like Trump would, or like Epstein would fly. It was like Clinton and them to Africa and back for this thing because he was associated with MIT, right? And so they were like, okay, this guy's a philanthropist. He's rich. He knows all these people, and he's gonna, donate his plane to fly over there, whether he's on it or not. And in my way of thinking, you get 4 connecting flights or 2 direct flights back and forth. And then you're like, something's up. And if you've gotten 5 flights, basically, I feel like you figured it out. You flew over once and back. You flew over a second time and back. And you're like,
Sure.
My suspicions from the last flight, this guy's weird. And then the 5th flight, you're like, you know what? I'll get my own ride home. That's my max outside, right? Yeah. But the question ultimately is like, again, to these folks, how long would it have taken you? Okay, that's it. I don't need any other reasons. I've got them. I've got the entire E. Jean Carroll story. I've got how he talked about his unborn daughters and sexualized them and all that kind of stuff. There's a myriad of other things, but for me, that's enough. Yeah. Okay. So we can compartmentalize the fact that he's a disgusting creep and useless as a moral compass. Period. End of story. Right? I don't need asked and answered. And if anybody brings him up to you, I feel like that's the only thing you have to. That's where I start and I stop. And if they try to what about it, then the only secondary answer I think is they're like, what about Clinton or any of these other people that flew? I'm like, okay, well, you're just agreeing with me that it was bad.
Yeah.
We don't have to what about it at all. It's bad. That's bad. If he was participating in it, hell with him. I don't care. Even if I liked him, it doesn't mean my values at the time that I thought he stood for were bad any more than somebody who believes in the Catholic Church and has lived that way their whole life. Some like old Italian grandma who has deep and abiding faith. It's like on her because one of the priests that came through their parish did something awful and was scuttled away by a archbishop. Is that her fault? No. Do her values change? Do her beliefs about that? Absolutely not. So immaterial to the conversation. It is simply enough that he's a scumbag and an unrepentant one. And if anybody throws up anybody else as part of the Epstein world, then you can go, at least we agree it's terrible. Yes, you and I both agree. Anybody who hung out with that dude for more than a week is awful. Dershowitz, anybody, done. If you had dinner at his house, shoo. Right? Like, I don't care. And again, I'm sure there are people who are like, I don't know, secondarily innocent to the thing and were just like taken to a dinner party by a friend and they're like, oh, this guy raises money for things and that person's on the team, so they're working the whole night while you're at dinner to hide what was going on with him. But after about 12 years, if you keep coming back to the guy's house, I was just saying, shoot, I don't care. And since Trump is in that basket more than anybody else, I don't want to hear it. Second thing is why I don't need another reason to not like him is because he's incompetent. We know this. We know he's incompetent. We know sometimes if he has enough money, and it's usually the taxpayers, he will hire people that will do competent things because that's part of the job anyways. And that those people, because they care about their future and their legacy, will actually do their job. I would argue Marco Rubio has a chance to be one of those people. That Marco Rubio is moving into his John McCain years. And instead of the kind of like quoting Christianity,
not
upstart,
on my bingo card.
Right. I mean, he's a doofus, but of the people that Trump is putting up, and I understand, low bar, he reads up on the stuff. You can disagree with his opinions, but he's actually researched it. There's a real argument to be had there materially. And in committee and places like that, he has sided with Democrats on legislation to get stuff moved across because he recognizes that that issues are not partisan, solutions can be. But there's some overlap in solutions, and that's what democracy is about. And I'm not a fan, don't get me wrong. But there's a difference between a guy who has some level of competence, believes he will be president one day and wants to be, thinks part of the threat of him being president is the racial openness of the Democrats, who might lean conservative on some issues, and if he can play that exactly right, he could be our first Latino president, right? That's
If
clearly
he plays it exactly right.
Yes, he's got that checklist he's doing. And I've often said, in the theory that goes on about, from what was it, Gordon Gekko, greed is good nonsense, back in the 80s, that there is one upside to confirmed self-interest, is that if somebody's worried about their legacy, at least they will do the baseline work of not, unless they want their legacy to be like Bundy or Gacy, if they want the illusion of being honorable, respectable, valuable, they will at least have to find their way to go through the motions of placating these, the standards of this that they at least sell, whether they do it above board or not. They're at least, and this is where we run into it with like Christians that are like the Christian posers. Because one of the tools you always have is at least to their face, you can go, well, you don't live that way. Calling them a hypocrite doesn't work because that word just disappears. It ends up being they got a defense against that jargon, but going, you don't actually believe that. I can tell by how you act. Like, that's how you do it. When trolls, when you're operating with trolls, and Trump is one of these people, using the placeholder word is like Trump and that crowd talk about three-letter organizations, the FBI, the CIA, and whatever. Anything that's kind of or military tech talk, it gets you through quicker to the next point. If your point is the sort of moral failures of someone like him, calling him hypocrite in his face doesn't have any effect.
No, he didn't care.
Nope. But describing him to his face as a hypocrite, or these people to their face as a hypocrite, describing what hypocrisy is in personal terms does work. And if you think like the trolls get online and they start winding people up, and you call somebody, Joel Osteen or Tommy Tuberville or somebody like that a hypocrite, they don't care. But if you go, oh, you obviously don't believe any aspect of the Bible, clearly from your behavior, that freaks them out. And I think that's one of the lessons. You know how, like, everybody talks about democratic messaging? Sometimes shorter isn't always better. And sometimes shorter means you're trying to skip past something because you don't like the details. And the great example I would give is KFC. KFC, Kentucky Fried Chicken, which when you go to China, every state in the unit has a kind of sound-alike name. Like California is California, New York is New York. Kentucky is Kendaji, and they slightly modified it. They probably could have come up with another like Kinta, Kentucky. Like they could have actually made that, but they say Kentucky because it means bite the big chicken, because KFC is very popular in China. And so it's kind of a cute nickname for Kentucky is bite the big chicken.
I'm here to bite the big chicken, Hal.
Yeah, right. You should walk in there. I don't know why they don't have that sales pitch. But anyways, KFC changed the reason they started calling themselves KFC wasn't for brevity. It was to eliminate the word fried from people's regular talking about it.
But so many people said it was to eliminate the word chicken.
No, because they didn't have real chickens, because they were blue, genetically grown chickens, where they couldn't legally say chicken anymore. Yeah. No, this is to get rid of the word fried. That's it. And so sometimes when you're jumping past using the more kind of branded version of language, what you're skipping past is the detail that's most important to the conversation. And so even when news media, and I've applied for my credentials for the White House because they say they're going to welcome new media and what have you. I don't expect to get it. But were I ever to do it, I certainly wouldn't lead off a question with, isn't it hypocritical to blah, 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 blah. The question should be stated as, obviously the president doesn't read the Bible at all. Why does he feel the need to hide that? See what I mean? See how that question is as sticky as you ever need to be? And you can ask it honestly, because it's an honest question. Why? Yep. Why pretend? And you know what he'll do? He'll start reading it just so he can quote something. And then he'll get the quote wrong, and it'll be hilarious to Corinthians. We'll be back right after this. It's the House Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide. I gotta say, like,
that's what the lyrics should be to that instrumental thing. Bite the big chicken. Bite the big chicken.
Bite the big chicken.
Andrea says, House Sparks, staff chat. Staff chat.
Yes. 80,000. My girl wants to party all the time, party all the time, party all the time. CSL put the party all the time logo or GIF in our.
A friend of mine is doing a reimagination of Party All the Time that is like as heavy as if Korn did it. It's really fun.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. And it's really hard to tell what the heck he is doing until you get to the chorus. Because, like, nobody here can hum the verses to Party All the Time.
No, not at all.
No.
But that speaks well of the chorus.
Yes, it does.
Mm-hmm.
Don't bore us. Get to the chorus.
So, okay. I haven't seen the actual tariff order yet. Has anybody? I've been looking for it all morning.
The what order?
What the tariffs are actually on.
Oh.
Back in 30 seconds, guys.
Excellent. Love how that suddenly works. It's amazing. Yeah, because he was saying
the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
So, one of the dumbest things about all this business is that Trump is releasing this tariff beast today because he made a promise to somebody and he thinks it's magic and it'll cure the woes of, I don't know. It's just, all it says to me is that USMCA was garbage. That's all it is. Like, this is silly. If the USMCA was the greatest trade deal ever signed by the United States, why would 5 years later when apropos of nothing, would you be have to start a 25% tariff trade war with both of the countries involved? Right? Again, if we have a massive trade deficit with Mexico and Canada, then it was either in place before USMCA and it was not addressed, or USMCA made it worse because we didn't have to have a trade war with this. We were not, like on a downhill slide with Canada about what? Now, I love me some Canada. Let me tell you something.
Yeah.
I've spent a little time in Mexico. I've gone to Tijuana a couple times when I lived in, like living early in the 90s in LA, because, it's right there. You can just go, right? This is cool. And you only needed a driver's license to go in and out back then. And now you need either a passport or a passport card, right? And then, but Canada, I lived there for almost 6 years doing Queer as Folk. So, that was life. Like, I have a lot of life in Canada, a lot of friendships, a lot of people that I care very deeply about who are there, and still to this day. And it's like one of those. It's like an odd gap. It's like, how you feel after camp when you're a kid and you go home from camp. You've only been there like a week or 10 days or 2 weeks, and it feels like I'm never gonna see my friends again. And you remember like those friendships for a very, very an awkwardly long time compared to the rest of the people you know in your life. 5 years of that, 6 years, 5 seasons. So I'm a big fan of Canada. Now, when Canadian actors want to come work in the United States, there are visa, they can come over and visit anytime they want. And there are visa booths in casting offices in Los Angeles. I think they're in New York too, or you have to go to a specific place. But in the bigger casting offices, they literally have a secretary in there that will handle your work visa for British actors and Canadian actors and foreign actors of all sorts. If you want to come work in LA, pretty much they'll grease the wheels as quick as they can.
Okay.
Meanwhile, Canada forces American productions to hire Canadian actors for parts filling a quota. And if you don't do that, at one point, like Sharon Gless and I were held up at customs, sitting in an airport, and they wouldn't let us into the country until the production agreed to hire 3 more Canadian actors.
Wowee.
Yeah. So, not fun. And also, that would be one of the reciprocal trade circumstances that I'm sure John Voight will help with in Hollywood. But that's for real. Now, on the other side, Canadian music, I love me some Canadian music. So does Johnny Million. We love some Rush.
Sure, yeah.
We love
Big Wreck.
I love Big Wreck, Danko Jones, Age of Electric, anything by Todd Kearns, you can't go wrong. Static and Stereo. Even our dear friends in Nickelback and in Theory of a Dead Man, who, by the way, the first Theory of a Dead Man record is the best Nickelback album ever, because Chad helped write it. And
They're so similar, yeah.
And it's like all the cool things that he does in production and none of the other stuff. It's pretty great. Anyways, it's a great record.
I knew this would happen, but people were calling
April
out
Wine,
Triumph.
Brian Adams, Leonard Cohen. Right,
Tragically
exactly.
Hip, Lover Boy. Yes is not Canadian.
No, Yes is not
British.
Canadian. No, but the point is, when you go to Canada, I discovered a lot of Canadian music when I first moved up there, because in their record stores they push the Canadian stuff to the front of the rack, and there's a little mandatory sign in the CD stores back then that had a little like it was mandatory. They had to have this little thing that said Canadian artist, and it had like they'd put a blurb, like a review of it, right, on the placard. And so the American music, if it was behind it, it was hidden by this giant piece of plastic with, promoting local artists. Now, U.S. artists, swallow up a lot of attention anyways worldwide, but in Canada, it's particularly a problem. But in reality, Canadian artists do very well in the country. It's when they come over here that it's a problem. If Canada wanted to do anything about it, they should have a nationalized Canada music thing where they pay record stores to promote Canadian artists. It would do more business for all of their artists, because Canadians already buy Canadian artists, and you want Americans to know how amazing Triumph is, right? So that was, and I was very aware of that. Trump thinks that part of it is the unfair part, is that we Canadians buy more American CDs and music, American artists than they buy of their own because of volume. There's just fewer of them, right? And that's again, if they make stuff there on the cheap and we buy it and repackage it and sell it, which is a big part of the American economy, is we invent something or we come up with an idea for something, and then a lot of the materials of it are either gathered from other places to be made here or made someplace like Mexico or Southeast Asia, slapped together there, and then the idea, which is the part that you're monetizing, the patent in the intellectual property of it, is what you're actually selling it, right? Is what you're actually selling. True of all countries.
Sure.
For the most part, unless they're a resource economy. He doesn't get that one of the reasons why we have a trade deficit with Mexico, with Canada, and with China in particular, is because that's the difference between wholesale and retail. We're the retailer to the world. They're the wholesaler in this circumstance. And there is no store in the world that buys as much, from their their wholesaler buys as much from them as they buy from the wholesaler. Like it's absurd. It's the simplest math in the world, and it's not that they don't buy our finished goods; it's that we buy a lot of their unfinished goods, and we put the spit and polish on it and resell it. And if you don't believe me, go look at all the people who voted for Trump, who are right-wing CrossFit Christians, who make all their money in multi-level marketing or drop shipping. Whether it's Amway or whether it's through Amazon or other retailers where you just find a product, slap your name on it, make a bunch of reviews on it, and throw it up on Amazon and sell the same thing that's available somewhere else, but with your name and a little sticker attached to it, because they drop ship it and they only make as many as you need, and it takes 6 to 8 weeks before anybody gets their stuff, but that's what it is. That's the industry that is going to be hurt the most by Trump's ridiculous tariffs. Those CrossFit Christians are about to go rake stomping. It's going to cost the rest of us for him to learn this lesson, but all of our livelihoods rely on whether or not Trump's followers wake up to this, how long it takes. And some people are saying Trump wants a war with Canada. No, he doesn't. He's just being stupid. That's a laser pointer. Same thing as Greenland. Somebody told him this, and he's just, don't take it seriously. There's other stuff to take seriously. He floods the zone with garbage. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. Philip Ittner will be joining us, and God help us. He should be. Hopefully the audio works out fine. Oh, my God. Desk, head. We'll be back.
The House Sparks radio program, Megaworldwide.
All right, sorry. The only thing AI music is good for. Stargal says, thanks, Hal. I hope you're right. Whatever happens, Canadians will fight at the end if necessary. Canadians aren't going to have to fight Americans for... He's not going to... Please. Again, this is... Worrying about idiotic crap like that is complying in advance. It's not happening. It is not. Not at all. There is no situation where his emergency order about fentanyl or something like that is a precursor to war because he declares Canada a terrorist state. It doesn't happen. Come on. And the idea that this dopey son of a bitch is like, oh wait, here comes Phil. Hopefully, I see audio moving.
Come on, Phil.
Oh, Phil, can you hear us?
Yep, I can hear you.
Oh, I hear Phil.
I do too, but he's choppy for some reason.
No,
Well,
can you hear me? Check.
Yeah, it's that. I don't know what that is. That's the like. It's not your fault. Don't. It's a glitchy situation, audio wise. Yeah. Check for me again. Let's see if we can.
We're in a break.
Yes, we are. We're in the
Yeah, we're in a break.
we're in the 5-minute news break. Let me do if I can do this. Okay, okay. That's the USB. Okay, and then sometimes. Check for me again because it's
Check.
okay. I'm going to turn off all the little
Sounded decent.
protectors. Yeah, again, one more time. Check. Whoops. Now I don't hear him at all
No.
because it's.
CPT listeners, stay ahead of the curve with our.
Can you dial back in, Phil, real quick? Sorry, and then I'll pop you in.
Did you jump him accidentally?
No, I turned off the echo cancellation and noise suppression stuff to keep the choppiness down, and hold on, I'm gonna. There he goes. He's going, and he'll be back in a second, and then I'll be able to throw him in. Okay. Hopefully that's better. We'll see.
Check.
Back in
check.
60.
You're there, but it's still a little choppy, but we'll work with it.
They can hear me.
Yeah, Chicago can hear you.
Maybe not.
Hold on one second. Why am I still down here? What's happening? Oh, that's two guests with news. I'm sorry. Boink. There I am.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
I'm
That's weird.
looking on and I can see.
30.
Thank you. Yeah.
Check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah. Does that sound jagged to you, Johnny?
It does.
Yeah.
I can't hear, and I can't hear Johnny, by the way.
Okay, so that's the issue. Tell you what, well, the proxy should handle it. Let's Chicago. How much time do we have? About a minute.
About 10 seconds, but I can throw more time in if you need.
Yeah, throw me another minute. Let's do one thing real quick, if I may.
Okay, I can hear Chicago.
Yeah, you just won't be able to hear Johnny. So what I'm going to try to do is, the original link for this morning, the morning one. Both of you drop out and do that one. I'm going to throw you in that one because it might solve it. Fingers crossed.
Okay, so
Yeah.
the one that I got from Andrea earlier.
Yep.
All right, be right back.
Okay. Leaving that, and then I will go to here. Okay, check. And then hopefully when these guys pop back in, we will be able to see them. Sorry about this, everybody. Chicago, you can hear me just fine, though, because I'm just going to continue on. So we don't have to worry about... Please tell me, God, that you can hear me. Yep. Okay. Okay, copy. There you go. And then... Yeah, there you go. All right, now I hear you good. You well, Johnny?
Yay.
And then hopefully Phil will be in just 1 second. Sorry. There we go. Waiting for Phil to come in.
Come on, Phil. Does he know that link? Did he get it?
He should have, yeah. So she resent it, so we should be able to get it. So Chicago, we can come back at any time if you need. Now we'll bring Phil in as we can. Should be okay, I think.
Y'all good to come back in 30, or do you need more time?
Yeah, 30's good.
Okay, cool.
I gotta rearrange Johnny so he looks good on the screen, man. There he is. Foop. Ta-da. Okay.
Thank you.
Now we just got to get Phil back into this one. So hopefully he's okay.
Come on. No.
Come
Let's
on,
go back.
Phil. Okay, yep. Great. Oh, here he comes. Good.
This is Damian Perdue of Think Theory Radio, Saturdays at 6 p.m. You're listening to Hal Sparks' radio program, Mega Worldwide.
I thought there was going to be like a new one every break.
I
was
hear
so excited.
I hear the air.
You want more,
I hear
Hal?
air.
We'll give you more.
Okay.
Hal
I
Sparks
think I hear
Radio
you.
Program, Mega Worldwide on Chicago's Progressive
Johnny?
Talk, WCPT 820. Hoo-yah!
Johnny, say hi, will ya?
Check a 1, 2. Howdy,
Nope, no
everybody.
Johnny.
Okay, he doesn't hear you for some reason. So I will relay for a moment until we remedy that
Well,
part of
this
it.
will be fun.
It's going to be great. I'm not
Semaphore.
worried about it. Yes, that's right. We'll use Aldous lamps. So obviously, the current circumstance, the American people are kind of in the same position that the Ukrainian people are in some degree, because not only did Donald Trump cut off what he thought was military aid, which is temporary, and was really just financial aid, not the gear itself, to Ukraine, but he cut off like federal funds to a bunch of different things by being stupid. So the most people, there was this reaction. I'm sure you saw some of this. There was a reaction to Trump's executive order to pause all federal funding, where all the organizations in charge of federal funding, because this came from the office of the president, took it seriously and did exactly that. And they had, the White House had to do this huge walk back and go, no, we just meant certain things from the last administration. Like, no, you didn't. You wrote in that thing all. You wrote all, dummy. Let's be abundantly clear. And the issue, I think, for most people is like, this is the world we live in with Trump for the time being until he wears out his welcome with the American people.
Well, I mean, he's certainly caused a lot of chaos here by doing that.
Sure.
First and foremost, this country needs weapons. So, as the fact that wasn't part of this blockage is, of course, welcome here. But, this is an entire war effort. And that includes a lot of stuff that is off the front lines, maintaining the electrical grid or making sure that there are refugee camps that are functioning, to make sure the rail system is to pay pensions. Yes. To, make sure that people get their salaries and that society doesn't grind to a halt.
Sure.
It's not just the bang bang. It's the other stuff. So the sudden realization that that's under threat has a lot of people, very concerned. I know people who work within organ, the various departments and organs of USAID, for example, and they have been told to not spend any money. I know Ukrainians who rely on funding, whether, there are guys who are out there trying to document war crimes. Okay.
Right.
That this falls under. So they don't know if they're going to be able to put gas in the tank to drive to some place where they interview people who are eyewitness to the horrific crimes that are happening here and the brutality that's happening here. I argue that's kind of important. So the ripple effect of all of this is not just simply, I mean, if you were cynical and, very inhuman or, lacking in empathy to the Ukrainian people.
Right.
And you would say, well, we're not paying their salaries. We're not paying their pensions. That's good American taxpayer money. Well, do you support war crimes?
Right.
Do you want to turn a blind eye to the suffering of hundreds of thousands of people? Because that's what this, in effect, did. I reiterate, Ukrainians are very grateful for the weaponry and to be able to defend ourselves. We came under massive attack today, for example. And we have Patriot missile systems that are hopefully, fingers crossed, not going to be obstructed by the Trump administration as of yet. But the fact that they're doing all this to civil society at a time when this country is at war and when awful things are happening is a very close second to not being able to conduct war. So yeah, it's been really damaging here. And then in a bigger picture, not Ukrainians themselves, who are avid admirers of America. You'll find very few countries on this planet that are as that see America in as favorable light as Ukraine. But even now, Ukraine, and of course, already we've seen it in Europe in a larger context, is starting to wonder how reliable is America as an ally. And, that's exactly what the Kremlin wants. So we've got all that going on as a result of this new administration.
Yeah. Obviously the Kremlin is messing around in Europe with the far right parties and messing around in Georgia and all these other things. But there's an increasing conversation that I have seen about Putin's the description of Putin's processes as dementia, like beyond just stupid or mistaken or egomaniacal. That that while they're salami slicing their way through the Donbass to some degree, and they have been making some gains that are largely about, again, the willingness. There's a war of attrition in how much flesh you're willing to if your only measure is how much flesh you're willing to lose versus the other side, that it's like a game of Saw, like whose fingers, I'm willing to cut off my arm, you're willing to cut off your fingers. Those, if in that circumstance, when you're a bigger human being and you're pound for pound cutting flesh off, the bigger one can arguably go, well, I can afford to lose a little bit off my finger because it's your entire pinky. And this is the way they've been running. And so they gain some ground by throwing more people and North Koreans or whatever in these situations. But at home, there's something in the order of 8 gas plants that have been attacked in the last month. That there is a belief that while Trump is habitually playing nice with Putin has been sort of dismissing him as being stupid lately, and or mistaken. Having people dance around it, and going, "Yes, we're not doing that." Whatever his peace plan that was supposed to be so easy and clean, he knew exactly what to say and exactly how to say it. All that stuff. Immaterial, not going to happen, and that Russia has said this multiple times. So there is a wall people are wondering about. Is there a point where Trump sees Ukraine as the better ally in this circumstance all of a sudden, whether it's out of financial reasons, self-interest, doesn't want to be associated with a loser in this circumstance? The people around him are like, do we really want to spend all this money rebuilding or fighting with Russia as we make them rebuild Ukraine after this? Because once this comes to an end, this is just like Afghanistan to some degree. There's no end to this that isn't ugly. And that's why he avoided the situation in Afghanistan. That's why he punted it to the next term and then not at all. Let Biden take care of it. Because everybody around him was like, look, you can end it, and you'll get credit for ending it, but there's no way people aren't going to die. There's no way this isn't going to be a mess.
No, right? I mean, obviously more people are going to die.
Yeah.
Well, look, I mean, there's a lot to unpack there.
Yes. Sorry. I mean, I didn't mean to unload on you. But
here's the thing. This is his war to lose.
Yes.
Russia is in a very, very bad situation. They are making incremental, and I stress that, incremental advances in a section of this country that is no longer actually strategically important to them, because Their whole purpose of taking the east of the nation was to try and create the land bridge to Crimea, which doesn't matter anymore because as long as Ukraine holds on to Odessa, which we need to talk about, by the way, but as long as Ukraine holds on to Odessa, Crimea is no longer strategically viable for them because Odessa can just pound the naval base that's on the peninsula. So strategically, you don't the Crimean Peninsula isn't viable, and ergo, the entire Donbass section, which is the land bridge to support the peninsula, is also no longer viable. So while they may be making incremental advances in the Donbass, they're losing significant numbers of soldiers and material every single day. They don't have the capacity to take Odessa or Kiev. It just ain't gonna happen. A rout and a disassembling of the Ukrainian armed forces is not going to happen, and that's the only way they're going to reach those objectives, Odessa and Kiev. They can't even take Kharkiv. I argue they can't take a town called Kramatorsk, which is this kind of 700,000, I think it is, maybe 500,000.
No,
they struggle to take a city of the size of like 60 or 70. Ain't gonna happen.
And the cost of human life in that circumstance would be so extraordinary that
would be astronomical. Would be astronomical for them. Ukrainians would pull back, and they have defensive line after defensive line, and the armed forces of Ukraine are not going to collapse. So my point of this is Trump must know this. Trump, he has been briefed about this. He knows that he can win the war with Russia. The problem and the question I would like to pose, and the danger I see on the horizon, is that he is not capable of understanding what happens when Russia loses.
Right.
What that's going to mean for his buddy Putin, because he is still, he's still admired of Putin. He still has warm feelings in his heart. But what does that mean for the Russian Federation? Because it's so integral to their sense of self to be an empire. And if they lose Ukraine, who are we? Are we empire anymore? And it's going to be very dangerous for Putin in that circumstance. So he's going to do everything in his power to try and get to a place where he can sell it to his people and still stay in the Kremlin. And the way he might be able to do it is a negotiation with Trump that Ukraine doesn't, abandons NATO membership or whatever, or there's no protections. There's no, and it has to be stronger than the Budapest agreement. It has to be real, honest to God. If you come back, no fly zone and all the rest of it. So he's got to find a way Trump has to find a way to sell this or succeed here. And that might be one of the way, and Ukraine would get it in the backside.
Yeah, we got to take a break. When we come back, I want to talk about January 14th, because January 14th, Ukraine launched a multi-pronged attack inside Russia, one of the largest in military history. And over here, because of the chaos of the Trump administration, crickets, largely. It was incredibly successful. It was, the Europeans are very aware of how, what a massive attack it was. But it may be and it's hard to say, but maybe the largest drone attack in the history of the world so far. But we'll talk about it on the other side. It's the House Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide, and now with 100% more, Johnny Million. Now, Johnny, I know, and Chicago, I'm sure they'll throw us some music in a moment as we go to break. But
yeah, sorry, we're on break now. We got 30 seconds.
Thank you. So, Johnny, you can hear Phil now, right?
I can.
Through
he
the
hear
Zoom?
Me?
No, he cannot. Yeah. So, Phil, do you have Zoom by any chance?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. If I sent you a link, can you pop in there, and all you've got to do is mute yourself in there and just listen to the audio from there, and you'll hear, you'll get your audio source from there.
Budget and time
the link is in the chat.
All the creativity has been removed from the Hell Sparks Radio program Mega Worldwide bumpers.
Hold on, let
Welcome
me
back
just launch
to the
Zoom.
Hal Sparks radio program Mega Worldwide.
So let me tell you a little bit of a story, folks, because we've had so much going on in the United States that it is hard to even parse out. It's whack-a-mole on some level, but you also there's a lot of it's whack-a-mole while someone's playing laser pointer with a cat. There you go. So just mute yourself in there, Phil, and that should allow you to hear Johnny and everybody.
Check 1, 2.
There you go.
Yep.
Great.
Hopefully that'll work.
I think so. All right. So on January 14th, Ukraine launched a multi-platform, multi-vector drone operation targeting Russia's strategic military-industrial infrastructure. The drone attack, one of the largest in military history, struck fuel depots, weapons manufacturers, key logistical hubs deep inside Russian territory. And there's video of it, of like, this was a planned attack. Was it on the level of Israeli beeper attacks? No, but it was incredibly inclusive in its targets. It was strategically successful. Nearly everything, if not everything that they fired got through and hit its target, which is bizarrely embarrassing for a country like Russia. One of the reasons why Trump has started talking about an Iron Dome for the United States, what he really means is an anti-drone defense, not an anti-missile defense like Reagan was talking about, and that we already have the structure in place for stuff like that. And, they want these movable systems in case there's a drone attack from a ship, right? So around ports and around other places, they'll station these things and yada, yada, yada. But they'll sit and they'll get dusty, and it's just silly because why would you even bother with that when you can just flip a switch and turn the internet off or drag some cables across the ocean or attack Space Force, which is more than likely what the Chinese and the Russians are focusing on doing because it's easier to do and have plausible deniability because the public doesn't want it. The public does not want the internet and public services to be destroyed, over economic issues. And yet, apparently that lesson has not been learned. Russia has lost 839,040 personnel since the beginning of the war. We will reach 900,000 by the end of this month of February. End of story. Like, that's madness. And within, like you've said, by the time we get to spring, we're going to have 1 million Russians
we'll be
who
over
died in this.
We'll be over the million mark.
It's
easily.
Over nothing. Over Nigel Tufnell sandwiches after slices of salami that don't fit on regular sized bread. It's embarrassing and sad.
It's the concept of empire. They don't care about the citizenry. The individual doesn't matter in Russia.
Yeah.
And that is I mean, they will tell you that themselves.
Mm-hmm.
That's their grievance with us, as a matter of fact, that we're too individualistic and selfish.
Mm-hmm.
That it is the great Russian, the Rodina, the motherland, that matters over the individual. And we're self-indulgent and decadent and all these things. That literally is widely held as their issue with us in the West. So I'm not dissing them. This is their own perspective, widely held. Painting with a broad brush, of course.
I am. I gotta say,
so am I. So am I. Don't get me wrong. This is an overwhelming mentality within
and
Russia.
It's terrible. It's not how to live. It's a bad thing.
No, I agree. But if they could keep it in their own country, I would advocate for the sake of my dear Russian friends, which I have. I've lived in Russia. I have good Russian friends.
Right.
But if they could keep it on their side of the border, that would be one thing. The problem is they're trying to impose it and maintain it in their colony, which which admittedly has been perverted by dominance by an empire. Look at the British and the Irish. Look at, all the remnants of empire that exist around the world. Colonization gets deeply embedded into your mentality, and it takes a long time to wash that stuff out. So the Ukrainians are fighting to push that off of them, this mentality of individual rights don't matter, inalienable rights don't matter. Whatever rights that you are able to obtain should be obtained by the strength of will. And if you are strong enough to take your rights, then you can hold on to them for as long as you can until somebody else comes and tries to take them away from you. That is the brutal nature of their system.
Right.
Which they say to us oftentimes, is, at least we're not hypocrites like you. And you try to put on all these airs of like liberal democracy and the rule of law and, one man, one vote sort of thing. And yet you had slavery, and yet you do this, that, and the other thing. You have empire, just like all other powers do. Right. Well, you know what? Yeah, sometimes we don't do it. We don't uphold ourselves. We don't.
Yeah, but sometimes we also have a war, and the right side wins in that war inside the country, and we don't go back to
absolutely.
it. And I
that's my point. That's the way I look at it. But I understand the argument that they are proposing. It boils right down to fundamentally, what is the alternative that you are offering me, Moscow?
Right.
What is the kind of world you are saying to me that because of my hypocrisies and how I don't uphold myself to the aspirations that I set for myself? Well, what's the option that you're presenting to me, Russia? Give up.
Mm-hmm.
That's the option. Stop trying to be better. Admit that you are a base human being who only wants to have that relations, that life, that power structure, the relationship between state and citizen and individual is brutality, and strength and might. That's the only way that you obtain rights and that you dignify your existence. Well, if that's the alternative you're presenting to me, Vladimir Putin and the Kremlin and Russian history for centuries, then no, thank you. I'll pass. I'll keep trying to be better, even though I fail quite occasionally, quite often, frankly, if we're being honest with ourselves, more often than we'd like. Let's say that.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to give up just because you want to live by these kind of Hobbesian, without the rule of law, life would be what is the Hobbes short, brutal, and I'm gapping on it, and Leviathan. But look, I'm
let's
sorry.
take a break. Well, here,
I don't want to live that way in the Ukraine.
Because I want agreed. And I don't. And again, there is a collision course between the sort of faux ideology of freedom and America and waving the flag banner patriotism that's on that we see everywhere else. Like amongst the maggots in the country. Did we? Are we? Yeah. Okay. We're live. Sorry. I was getting a note offline. We understand that that's how the maggot language is. It's a language of freedom and patriotism, and that belief system, if they want to even pretend to believe it, is on a collision course with how Russia is run and how Russia behaves and how Russia's system works inside. They are incompatible at a certain point. The question is, do they realize it before the crash? And part of the reason why they haven't realized it so far is because they don't like the people who are telling them. That's it. They just don't like hearing it because they have daddy issues or mommy issues that they feel like they're being lectured to about it. So that's enough for them to side with Putin until it's too late. We got to take a break. It's the House Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide. So, Johnny, I'm going to mute you on video and unmute you, ask you to unmute on
Zoom.
Zoom. Yeah, there you go. And so I
Oh,
think,
now I think I can
22?
hear you.
yeah. So I created my own mix minus by
Nice.
using two different
Oh.
sources.
Oh, there you go. Well done.
Yeah,
Nasty, brutish, and short. That's the Hobbes quote.
gotcha. And it's weird because he and I have never met.
This is Tom Hartman, and you're listening to the
Yeah.
Hal Sparks radio program, Mega
read
Worldwide on
Leviathan?
Chicago's
Great read.
Progressive Talk, WCPT.
There was a moment where, and by the way, now that I've got you guys where you can talk to each other, Johnny can give you questions from the chat room.
Hi.
I
do.
yeah.
I've got a few questions.
Hey.
Okay, excellent. Fire away, Johnny.
All right. So question number one. I've only got two questions so far. Would you ask Phil about Belarus opening its borders with Ukraine? That's from Ellen B.
I haven't heard that they're opening the borders, but I've been preoccupied with the show this last 72 hours or so. They're not. No, look. If they were opening the borders, I would have heard about it, certainly, one way or the other. I think maybe what the audience member is asking is questioning me whether or not it will be opened, because it won't. There's no way that the Ukrainians are going to open the border with Belarus unless something extraordinary is happening behind the scenes. That would be inviting a Russian pincer move. Despite the fact that Lukashenko has just gotten reelected in quotation marks in a really obviously sham election. He doesn't have the support of his people, and he doesn't have the support of his armed forces. So if Russia were to amass troops in Belarus and there was an open border between Belarus and Ukraine, obviously, presumably the question is, did they open it? If it was opened, Russia moved troops in there, they would close it again instantly. And secondarily, Belarusian troops, if somehow Putin exerted pressure on Lukashenko to use his own troops to cross over Ukraine at those border crossings, that would be detrimental to Lukashenko as well. So I have not seen anything about them opening the border. I would be stunned if that was the case, not only because of what I just outlaid, but because it would be headline news everywhere. It would be alerts all over the place. So ain't gonna
was
happen.
Lukashenko running kind of against being I was connected to at the hip with Putin for a bit during the election?
Lukashenko, as always, is playing a very dangerous game because he knows that the second Putin is deposed, he's done for.
Right.
And yet at the same time, he wants to play out to a wider audience that he can be kind of reasonable. So no, his clock is ticking just as much as Vladimir and the Kremlin's clock is ticking.
Gotcha. Johnny, you have another one?
I do. This is from Jen, and this is kind of for both Phil and Hal. Do you think the Dems aren't talking impeachment because that will just make Trump more popular?
No, I think it's too early to do it. I think what you want to do is wait until it's their idea, because you're not going to be able to do it because you don't have control of the House or the Senate anyways. So what you want to do is the strategy should be 2026 at all costs. And there are different strategies at different, in different states and in different contingencies of the voter blocks that they have to appeal to that will make that happen. Then and only then will you be able to actually impeach. And if people are going, I'm not going to vote for them unless they're going to impeach him, then they don't have the strategy or like the strategic mind enough to recognize that that everything's not a nail. Like you just admit you're a hammer. And sometimes subtlety is required in these circumstances, especially in politics and in a democracy where you don't want just revolution cycles, right? That's not what we want. And so it's unhealthy, it's wrong, it's stupid, it's ineffective. While you convince one side that they've won, you convince the other side that they have been attacked, not just that they lost. And so that you got to fix that cycle. So no, I think they're not talking about it because there's got to be a groundswell around it if they are going to do it. And there will be other ways to nullify his power. And part of it is a new strategy. Give him enough rope to hang himself in that regard. That's really what they've got to do. Because impeachment didn't work with those folks last time, and it didn't have the impact that they wanted because they don't have any respectful Republicans on the other side that will pick up the ball and help them. And you will need 60-40 to get him removed and all that kind of stuff. It's just not going to happen. So don't waste your time. I would say put a flag in the ground, go, this is wrong. I think he's committing a crime here. Those kind of things. Those resolutions will have value later. But impeachment won't. It's just not. It's not going to happen. It becomes an exercise in PR, and if that's the only one you have, then it seems like the Republicans will use that to blame you for why Trump's plans didn't work. You kept him busy with impeachment, and you didn't vote for anything he presented just because you don't like him, and therefore it failed because of you, not because it was a dumb idea. Part of it is you have to let his stupid ideas play out a little bit and protect the people in your states. That's the only option you really have.
Yeah, and the troubling thing about it, though, is that as dictators everywhere, or wannabe dictators, suddenly find the ground beneath them shifting, they can often double down, quadruple down, etc. So
right.
The whole concept of giving him enough rope, scarily, is maybe the best tactic because he's going to, there's also the concern that as he loses control, he's going to get more dangerous, just like Putin.
Yeah, but I think there's a difference too, is that I think Putin does have that genuine killer instinct, whereas Trump has a lazy disdain for life. And so there are ways to fight those that are different. One's more active than the other is.
There are other fundamental differences in our entire system. So right. I'm talking bigger picture of kind of like how rulers relate to, and especially rulers that either are absolute or intend to be absolute. When they start to lose their mojo, things get hinky. But all in all, I'd rather be in an America where a Trump is starting to lose his grip than in a Russia where Putin is starting to lose his grip. That to me is a far more dangerous scenario. That's out of the equation.
Right. And I agree. I think the Democratic strategy has to be a lot more subtle and insidious and smart than it was kind of overt, and kind of trying to operate on the same PR level that Trump's crowd did. That there was MAGA and there was the resistance, and these were kind of equal forces, and they had this kind of like Star Wars mentality where the word resistance was used everywhere in media when they were trying to push back on Trump, and it didn't land. It didn't actually do what it meant to. It might have preached to the choir a little bit, but it didn't move the needle at all. And so if it doesn't mean it's wrong to say it, it just means it's just not effective.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of got to be judo this time.
Yes.
Use your opponent's weight against himself.
That's right.
And that
totally
doesn't just mean to be passive with the whole give him enough rope and he'll hang himself. No, I think we can use his weaknesses, his inefficiencies, his stupidity, his belligerency, his cruelty. All of it can be used against him, himself. So it's not simply passive. It's also using your energy to take away,
to divert their energy. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
And towards a target you're choosing.
Let him dig his own grave.
That's right. And I think there is value in that. Let's grab another question, Johnny.
Let's see. This is from 56 Nick Rich. Are the expected supplies getting to Ukraine from all sources?
Well, they never are. It's never 100% efficient. there's corruption, there's mismanagement, there are logistical problems. This is a massive endeavor.
Sure.
This is the largest war since the Second World War. I mean, certainly on the European continent, but I would argue in terms of resources and dedication to a war effort, this is, I think this surpasses Vietnam. I think this surpasses Iraq. I don't think we've seen a war of this scale. So things are going to break down. War and having a military is a really difficult thing. We should be blessed. We are blessed at how efficient our military is, because it's a difficult endeavor. So not everything is getting here. No, not everything is getting to the front lines. But they're ramping up their domestic production. They've got little mom and pop shops doing 24/7 drone production using 3D printers. I mean, there's a will, there's a way. And and in addition to that, yes, a lot of the kit is getting here. The anti-aircraft, the air defense systems are improving. There are more fighting vehicles and artillery pieces that are coming in. It's not as good as it could be, but it's certainly enough for the Ukrainians to defend themselves for a very long period of time.
Right.
When the objective is what the Russians want to do, which is, again, big target items like Odessa and Kiev itself.
Yeah.
And they're just not going to get there. So Ukraine is going to, they're going to lose people. It's a terrible, awful thing, and we should be doing better. There's always room for improvement, but they'll fight this war. Whatever Trump decides, they'll fight this war. And I think the Europeans have gotten the smelling salts and have woken up to the fact that they need to step up their game as well. So it could be better, but it's not dismal.
Yeah. Well, and they're like the biggest news. Okay, the two biggest pieces of news I've seen as far as battles happening and gear being used was, again, the January 14th attack that Ukraine just did, which was incredible, well coordinated. Obviously, they have plenty of intel and access to it, not just through us, but also through our European partners, our NATO allies.
And their own spies.
And their own stuff, right? Spies. Because we've helped them build it up. One of the things that Biden did beforehand was like, you're going to need your own system to get this intel and find it, and we're going to help you build it before we leave, which they did in the last few months. The other thing is, what did Russia do this week? Well, they attacked Kursk in an attempt to take back part of it, thought one of the buildings was being used by the military, and they blew up a boarding school in Kursk full of Russians. And there are 89 people buried in the rubble. And the Ukrainians there were like reporting the deaths and trying to dig these people out. So that, again, that's part of the reason why everybody talks about this, and the rest of the world's media, like Vladimir Putin, is diminished and losing his mind, as opposed to just mistaken or egotistical at this point. And they're talking about Trump the same way. There's, beyond Xi Jinping's stroke, or, and the other issues that he's had where he's gone offline for a little while, there's a layer that these three guys, what happens when we hit a wall where all of them are gone? What does that world look like? It looks a lot better, no matter what.
Yeah, it does.
Because it really, really does. And it's a lot of, I think the world is holding its breath till it happens. Let's take a break. We'll be back right after this with more of your questions at infotainmentwars.com, patreon.com/HalSparks. Thank you to the Patreons who support the show. We couldn't be here without you. Super chats are always welcome. And I'm sorry I don't have my little Venmo thing up because I had to rebuild my entire setup from scratch yesterday. And we'll be back right after this. Yeah, I'm still waiting for Trump to announce his tariffs.
Yeah.
Like, Yeah. President announces. Okay, here we go. Oh my God. So here it is. Breaking news announces oil and gas tariffs on Mexico and Canada. Tariffs on other stuff. What? He just said he wasn't going to do. Like, this is ridiculous. Hold on. When is this? Oh, that's yesterday. Yeah, even that one. Nope. Yeah, it's all yesterday or a few days ago. Latest U.S. dollar surges. Trump announced it. Yeah, that's a day ago.
My portfolio is tanking.
Yeah, everybody's is. Although, it'll I have a feel. I gotta say, like, I think that's what this is. I think this is him, shorting, having his rich friends short the stock market, and then he automatically pulls it back because he can, just by farting, he can change the directory. If he spends the day in the hospital, it'll lower the Dow. He could do that and make himself and his friends billions of dollars. Simply by checking into
I am
Walter
happy,
Reed.
you are happy, let us be happy together. Whether the weather is cloudy or sunny, I will always be your funny honey bunny. I am lucky, you are lucky, let us get lucky together. Whether the weather is cloudy or breezy, I'll be there to say, hey, come on, let's take it easy. Cause isn't it nice to have the friends that you do? And isn't it nice that the sky is so blue? And isn't it nice to say I love you, chugga chugga choo choo, woo woo. I am smiling, you are smiling, let us smile together. Whether the weather is cloudy or stormy, I will still be there in the morning. I'll be right by your side in the morning. I'll make you breakfast in the morning. I hope that you like cereal.
Yay! Hooray!
So it's we're getting into the afternoon, into well past golf time for Trump to sign his thing on tariffs, whatever they are. He's supposed to impose them. They're not a general one. They're supposed to be specific to something. Is it dairy from Canada because he's mad on behalf of Wisconsin? Is it auto manufacturers? All the auto manufacturers, are chewing his ear because the plants in Mexico or Canada are a way of keeping the cost of making those vehicles down so that Americans can buy them at a premium. That's the whole point. And the factories in Mexico are completely automated. There's 9 people working in them. So even if you move them back here, it's not like you're going to employ 10,000 people. It's just absurd. So far, he said they're coming. Hasn't said what they are and what they will be on specifically. And I got to say, the more he does this kind of stuff, the more it sounds like he's just using his position as president to do pump and dumps for his rich friends to bounce the stock market around. And even if he just, if he knows he's going to announce something tomorrow and they're going to go, the stock market's going to go down like a half a percentage point because of this. He makes 6 phone calls. His buddies go, I did you a favor, click, right? And they're all committing insider trading, but it came straight from the president, and he can't, it's his official duties to warn big American investors, right? Or something. He could argue that it's official, so he can't go to jail. They could, but he can't. We shall see what we shall see. I'm waiting on this. Meanwhile, the peso has fallen, the dollar's gone up, which is, again, you can track the interest rate on the dollar on how much over $1 it's worth, pretty much. And if it starts to go up again, that's where you lose stuff. So it's all silliness. Let's grab another question from the chat because, we could talk circles about this forever.
I'm not seeing anything. Oh,
okay.
Wait, here we go. This is from
Okay,
Mr. Hull,
well, let me.
for Phil.
Oh, you got one?
Are the Ukrainians rebuilding any of their destroyed infrastructure or just waiting for the war to end?
Nope. Every single day they restore damaged infrastructure. Mm-hmm. Not in the occupied territories. That would be Russia's responsibility until the Ukrainians can get back there. But every time we get hit with something, there's buildings that were hit at the beginning of the war. There are buildings that were hit 6 months ago that have been rebuilt. They rebuild electrical grids within 48 hours. There's a massive, and they're really good at it. So civil engineering The civil engineers of Ukraine are the unsung heroes of this war. So,
Mm-hmm.
but if we don't have another question, I got a couple of things I want to bring note to.
Sure.
One is this morning we got hit in Odessa, and this was different. They hit either with intent, or they just chucked a munition into the city, downtown Odessa, into the historical district, and they came within spitting distance of the Odessa Opera House. And as someone who has been to Odessa many, many times, Odessites are very fiercely proud of their city. And one of the things they're most proud of is the Opera House. If they were to hit, this is bad enough, but if they were to actually hit the Opera House, because they already hit a 17th century or an 18th century cathedral that made Odessites turn very bitter towards Moscow. If they were to hit the Opera House, or there are a couple other locations in that city that if they were to hit it, like Primoz Market, which I have a vlog about on my channel, if they were to hit these kind of things, look, again, I reiterate what I said earlier in the program. They have to take Odessa. And if they were to hit something like the Opera House, which they came very close to hitting today, and which Ukrainians are furious about, especially Odessites, if they hit that thing, the resistance to any kind of occupying power that tried to come into that city would meet absolutely fierce resistance, because there'd be an insurgency. There'd be all sorts of resistance to them. So this thing today about almost hitting the Odessa Opera House is really big news here in Ukraine. And the second thing is, self-serving as I am, please, everybody, tune in to this week's episode of On the Edge. It's one of our very best. We're really getting into our stride. I'm working really well with my editor. And this week's guest is a guy by the name of Philip Obaji, who is a Nigerian-based journalist and activist. And we go for about an hour dissecting all of Russia's malign intent and actions on the continent, whether it is forced human migration to put pressure on Europe and exacerbate the right and their reaction to an influx of migration, or whether it is supplying weapons to one faction or another in a regional conflict, or whether it is sending Wagner or other private military groups to go into places where there are gold and gem mines and basically seize those assets through some very brutal methodology that we've seen in here in Ukraine. So we talk all about kind of this whole thing of like what it's like to be colonized by Moscow, and there's a certain solidarity there. But unfortunately, because of the disinformation campaign that Moscow is so good at, there's also a lot of anti-Ukrainian sentiment on the continent. We get into all of it, and it's really well paced. It's very well edited. We've got elements in there from different kind of things to further our conversation. It is easily one of our best episodes. Comes out 8 p.m. Kiev time. That is 6 p.m. GMT, and I think that's 10 Pacific, so that would be noon, I guess, Eastern. Please join us for the premiere if you can, but if you can't, watch it sometime in the very near future, because we get into the concept that this is not limited to Ukraine. The conflict with Moscow is global, and if you in America do not think that there are active measures of information warfare going on right now that are being dismissed by the administration for their own, we all know the reasons why, you need to watch this episode, because we talk about the global threat that the Kremlin poses, and it's a really good one.
Excellent. On the Edge is the show, and you can find it on his YouTube channel, Philip Ittner, 1 L in Philip, 2 T's in Ittner. Check it out, and then you can follow him on Blue Sky and Threads and what have you. So, and I don't know if any came up, Johnny, during when he was talking, but
we got 5 minutes or so.
Yeah. So one of the things I want to talk about specifically is there seems to be, there was definitely a lead up once the election went the way it did, and there was this kind of tiptoe that we were kind of aggravated about the cautionary aspect of the Biden White House, thinking that the public was so against Ukraine that it would be pivotal in the election. So to make sure they weren't shaving any votes anywhere, they kind of slow walked what they'd have done. When in fact, we're in an era of seemingly where fortune favors the bold. And even if it's foolhardy, people would rather see forward bullish leadership in some cases, especially the stuff that scares them, than tiptoeing. Or they are suspicious of tiptoeing, which is another curious aspect. They are suspicious of anybody who's cautious about anything because it looks unsure, even if you're just aware that there are unknowns out there that you have to be cautious about. They prefer, in times of discord and fear, and I think post-COVID, there's a lot of people who are anxiously stuck in that space, right? That can't kind of deal yet, or they haven't recovered, or maybe they're just overly traumatized. And again, the American people have been through a series of traumas, from AIDS to 9/11 to the crash in 2008 to COVID, that they've taken incredibly personally, and it's driven a lot of people to point the finger in the wrong direction or everywhere but up. And so I'm curious as to how the Europeans, who went through similar amounts of it, but in varying degrees, if some of them are obviously Sweden and Finland seem to be ponying up in a way that Germany and France are slow walking. France, I give Macron points for being a decent Trump whisperer, because he went to Russia and he was like, look, I'm checking all the boxes, but I'm not going to agree with crap, and that was part that kind of saved him in a couple of moments, right? There's an argument that holding back material from Ukraine, not allowing them to fire into Russia, being cautious, which was reasonable, was perceived by a big amount of the American people as being unsure about the purpose of the war, unsure about who should win, unsure about whether or not we want to participate in it, instead of just genuine caution, right?
Yeah, you may have something there in the fact that it also wasn't sold to the American people as well as it should have been. Right. Why this is vital to us, why this is important. That was another mistake that I think was made. As far as the Europeans are concerned, well, of course, they know the trauma better than we do. As much as America has been through in the last 2 or 3 decades, which I 100% agree with you, and we still haven't addressed some of that deep-seated trauma, like 9/11 in particular. Yeah. You could even say going back to Watergate. Those shifts, the shifting sands and the danger and this fear and exacerbating the fear, we still haven't addressed it properly, in my opinion. The Europeans, it's much more conscious to them what a full-scale war is. And yet at the same time, they're also conscious of what appeasement looks like. So with a less reliable partner in the United States, I think, as scary as it is of a direct conflict between Europe and Russia, I would argue that the prevailing attitude in Europe, and it's growing because of what Russia's been up to on the continent, that you got to stand up to this guy. You just got to stand up to this guy, and you've got to stand up to a reinvigorated and increasingly more expansionist and dangerous Moscow. So that trauma is not the same, but yeah, it's
something we got to deal with. We're at the end of the show.
Interesting times.
That's right. I want to remind everybody, check out Philip Bittner's YouTube channel. Johnny Million has one too. It's Johnny Million. We'll see you guys next week. It's the House Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chicago, for threading that needle with me today.
Chicago.
Oh, good. Thank you.
I'm going to come up with I'm going to see if I can work out the details of what was messed up or whatever and try to solve it by next week. If not, it might have just been a ruffle in the road. It's just how things are wonky. We'll see.
Oh,
yeah. hang on there for a second. After I'm gonna sign off online, everybody, and try to work on some of the stuff. So I appreciate you guys for being with us. If Johnny and Phil could hold on for just 1 second, I want to test something and see if we can get this working so that it's easier on you guys. We'll see you guys very soon. Oh, and I've got to turn. Sorry, I've got to turn on music on this one.